Long live the king, the definitive Necropolis campaign, penultimate in the main storyline. Necro means skeletons everywhere, right? Legions of skeletons, right? Skeletons, 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 right? Heck no! I'm gonna be the most creative, least necro player ever. Stay tuned. As will be the norm from now on, the rules are in the description, but the short version is, no losing units. Let's go! This campaign follows a similar progression style as Liberation, the previous campaign. No heroes will follow me from scenario to scenario, but there are quest artifacts available. I will, again, not take advantage of this, just because I don't need to. First scenario is a Griffin's Heart. The scenario bonus choices are very varied this time. A Scroll of Death Ripple, a Black Knight, and the Skeleton Transformer. There's an absolute clear choice here. A bonus which lets me instantly go out and clear the map of guards. The single Black Knight. So with the Black Knight in hand, I start resetting, looking for the correct hero for me to blast through this scenario. Thant. Thant starts with the spell Animate Dead, which is essentially resurrection for undead units. This map size is small. I start in the north, red in the south. The underground is also at play here, but overall, the map is just very cramped. The scenario goal is to enter Stone Castle, Red's castle town, with the Spirit of Oppression artifact. So while I technically don't need to eliminate Red, it makes my life so much simpler if I do. In order to beat Red's hero, I will build up the Hall of Darkness, upgrade it, and attack with a bunch of Dread Knights when the time comes. You might think, if I venture out with just the one Black Knight and it dies, I won't be able to animate it, right? Correct. But the guards will fight with just the one Black Knight are very doable. Especially since we got Magic Arrow from the Mage Guild we built on day 1. Septiana flags an ore pit to the north, and Thant encounters a garrison with 10 pikemen and 10 archers. Quick combat takes care of that. Says it all about the Black Knight's strength, doesn't it? Since all Necropolis heroes have necromancy, how will I deal with getting a bunch of weak skeletons, which are basically target practice for ranged units? Easy. I can just store them in garrisons, set them as mine guards, or just trade them to Septiana. So I will be history's first necromancer to despise skeletons, or at least I think I am. Flagging a few mines, Thant encounters obstacle number 1, the marksman. Only 18 this time, lucky. I've seen up to 25, which would have made this a whole lot more difficult. I absent-mindedly don't wait on my first turn after casting Magic Arrow, but the Black Knight is tanky enough to just survive a bunch of attacks anyway. A few Magic Arrows and some Knight on Man action and this fight is taken care of. This pathing through the underground is mostly just to farm experience, as I will need a few days to build up my town anyway. On week 1 day 6 I build the Hall of Darkness, and on week 2 day 2 I upgrade it. Being a little short on gold, I wait until week 2 day 4 to upgrade all my 6 Black Knights to Dread Knights, but now it's time to attack Red. Breezing past the garrison and the pikemen as well, Loinis is standing ready to take a beating. Waiting the first turn, Loinis hastes his 74 pikemen and half-heartedly tries to defend his archers. I then attack the pikemen, blocking the archers in the process. The Dread Knights take a beating from the castle forces, and I've already lost 2 of them. Turn 4, I cast Animate Dead, raising the 2 dead undead knights from the dead into undeadness again. Apparently the game thinks you can resurrect undead units. Very logical. The now 6 Dread Knights take out the archers and then survive with a massive 2 HP before eliminating Loinis' final units, the pikemen. Without Animate Dead, this fight is really darn hard. Leaving the raised skeletons in the gem pond, I move to take Stone Castle, which is guarded by a single pikeman, which gives me 1 skeleton. Annoying. This slows my map movement down a lot. Now to finish the quest to get me Spirit of Oppression. To do this, I need to go down the other subterranean gate, which is in the southwest corner. I bring along another 3 Dread Knights before heading down underground. Everything is guarded by monks or zealots here, so I don't want any skeletons on me. The first zealot fight is quick combated. I leave the 3 skeletons I get in the ore pit before taking on the final fight of this scenario, which quick combat also takes care of. A bit anticlimactic, but oh well. Here we find a pendant of total recall. Leaving the last skeletons in the same ore pit, I turn the pendant in for the hourglass of the evil hour, which again is turned in for the pendant of dispassion, which again is turned in for the Spirit of Oppression. which is then brought to Stone Castle. Incredibly, while this took me a whole 7 minutes of gameplay, we still couldn't finish this before month 2, week 1, day 6. But it is done. Quick, efficient, beautiful. On to the next one. Season of Harvest is up next. The scenario bonuses are all related to getting more skeletons this time. Vampire's Cowl, which gives plus 10% to necromancy. The necromancy amplifier, the structure giving plus 10% to necromancy as well. Or Unearthed Graves, giving plus 6 to skeleton production every week. As the latter two are both easy to build, and the Vampire's Cowl is not available outside of this bonus, I'm going with the Cowl. The goal of this scenario is very straightforward. Amass 2,500 skeletons among all heroes and towns within month 4. I'm technically up against red and blue, but they have fortless towns and no heroes, so they don't really play any part in this scenario at all. Both Vidomina and Vokial are always starting heroes here. Vidomina will be my main, as she has the necromancy specialty, which will increase my skeleton gains compared to other necro heroes. The map is split with a narrow ocean in the middle. I'm on the east side, which only houses mines and a couple of dwellings, while on the much bigger west side is where the action will be. The plan of attack is to use the 2 Black Knights Vokial starts with, trade them to Vidomina, then do a lot of fights on the western continent. I will also build up to Vampire Lords in my Necro Town and send another hero over the ocean after a while. Every single fight on the western continent is against tier 1 or tier 2 units from Rampart and Castle. To be perfectly honest, I don't think this scenario is especially interesting, so I will mostly talk about the setup and show a few of the fights to illustrate how I do it. The most annoying part of this scenario is the fact that I gain skeletons after every fight. I know, that's kind of the point here, but it means I have to do every fight manually in order to not lose any units, as the auto combat always goes max aggressive in fights, losing skeletons every time. This also means I can't do fights against archers or marksmen, unless I trade the skeletons away before the fights. Most of the fights with Vidomina and her 2 Black Knights play out the same way. Walk forward with the Black Knights in order to draw enemy attention, hide with my skeletons, and let the Knights kill the low tier units slowly but surely. The idea behind this scenario is to take advantage of the skeleton transformer as well. Some units will join me, and there are some creature dwellings as well as units in the towns I'll conquer. These are supposed to be brought to the Skelly transformer via a pair of boots of levitation, found in the bottom right corner of the western continent. What I'm doing instead is clearing the map from the northeast, going to the northwest with Vidomina, and towards the middle with the second hero I brought over here, Thant. Thant, not the same one from the previous scenario, still has the animate dead spell for extra safety. On week 4, day 4, I enter sort of a treasure area. A small space with lots of necro units, which will always join, as well as Sandro, who starts at level 5. As Thant somehow, at a much higher level, still hasn't gotten expert necromancy, while Sandro has, Sandro takes over as my second hero. Up to this point, I have amassed a bunch of random pikemen and centaurs, as well as the necro units I'm not using with my 2 main heroes. So Thant's new task is to bring them to Septiana, who will then take all these straggler units to the Skelly transformer. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, Vokial has dutifully recruited every wight and skeleton from the 2 dwellings on the eastern continent. Septiana, on month 2, week 1, day 5, has the pleasure of transforming a whole lot of creatures, netting me a sweet 936 skeletons in my hometown. Thant's new assignment now is to follow Sandro around, taking all of his skeletons, which will allow Sandro to use Vampire Lords to do fights against ranged units, which is very helpful, as there was a month of the Lizard Man, which is both beneficial and annoying. If only they were melee man. As we are closing in on the 2500 skeletons overall, Vidomina gets the honor of using the Vampire Lords, while Sandro is the new Thant, the Necro Water Boy. Breezing through a few Lizardman fights, the final batch of skeletons are raised from a battle against 62 Lizardmen, which is just quick combated. On month 2, week 3, day 5, a bit over a month ahead of schedule, this PvE scenario is done. I wish this had a much tighter schedule, as it would be way more intense. First time I played through this, I thought I had to be done by month number 3, as I misread before I started, so I was trying to find optimizations here and there, but it is really not necessary. Anyway, more interesting stuff in the next scenario, thankfully. Corporeal punishment is the next scenario. I bet you thought this is pronounced corporeal or corporal, but I checked before recording this, of course. Bonus choices are largely irrelevant, as I won't use any of them, but I picked the Pendant of Death for no particular reason. The goal here is to defeat the Death Knight Mott, and he's hiding in his Necro Town in the southeast. I start with 2 Necro Towns, one in the middle of the map and one in the northwest. Red starts with 3 towns, one in the east, the one Mott is hiding in, and one in the southwest. All zones are divided by red garrisons with some skeleton warriors, zombies, and wraiths. There are a few ways to do this scenario with no unit losses. Thant is an obvious choice, as he, as mentioned in both the previous scenarios, has the animate dead specialty, and just abuse that, but he has necromancy, and dragging those slow skeletons around is annoying. Using Deemer is also a pretty good choice, as he can use his Meteor Shower specialty along with Warlock's naturally high power stat to smack Mott around. Lastly, Ballista specialists like Arlak and, like in this attempt, Pyre can clear the map early, which is great for tempo. The advantage of the Ballista is that I can do pretty much every neutral fight the second I get vampires, as most of the fights are against Walking Dead. Pyre also starts with logistics, which is always very helpful to have. I ignore building creature dwellings in my northern town, but in the middle town I aim to have a Hall of Darkness built in week 1 along with a citadel. In week 2 I will go for a dragon vault, in order to get bone dragons and later ghost dragons. Secondary skills are largely irrelevant in this scenario. Artillery, which Pyre starts with, is nice as I can actually aim and do some good damage with the ballista. Having earth magic would be nice as well, because Pyre does not get a lot of power naturally, and because I plan on getting animate dead from the mage guild, it is very likely to get in Necro Towns. I'd need 4 power casting basic animate dead, 3 power with advanced earth, and only 1 power with expert earth in order to animate any potentially lost ghost dragons. Of course I also need basic wisdom to learn animate dead to begin with, but that is a guaranteed offered skill every 6th level for might heroes like Pyre. Using the ballista plus vampire strat to clear all the mines in the middle zone and picking up some permanent stats, every one of these early fights play out the same way. Walking Dead and zombies will never do the 250 damage necessary to take out the ballista in time. They are simply too weak. I head back to the middle town with Pyre to pick up the available Black Knights, and I even have the time to upgrade them to Dread Knights before I head out again to explore and collect more resources. I clear the northeast garrison and pick up everything close to the garrison. There's a red town further into the zone, but I don't want to spend too much time here as I want to attack Mott before week 4, so it doesn't have too much time to build up fortifications, and the ballista really does not scale well into the later parts of the game. After collecting all the nearby resources, I head to the western part of the middle zone. There are a couple of really good artifacts I want to get my hands on before I eventually head down to Mott. Buckler of the Knoll King, giving +4 defense, and Dragon Scale Armor, giving +4 to both attack and defense, giving me a massive might stat bonus. In the meantime, I've also built up the Mage Guild to level 3 in order to look for the Animate Dead spell. Pyre is really not much of a magic hero, especially with her quite shitty spellcasting stats right now, but having the opportunity to animate 1 Ghost Dragon or 1 Dread Knight could be clutch in a pinch. On week 3 day 4, I have recruited my final army, 9 Dread Knights and 3 Ghost Dragons. It's time to head down to greet Mott. On the way, I take out Isra, who just wanders around with a bare bones army, pun definitely intended. Tamika is also present on the way, and as I don't want to end my turn right outside of Mott's town, I take her out as well. Why do I not want to stay right outside of Mott's town, you ask? Well, it's cursed ground, restricting spellcasting to level 1 spells, which would stop me from casting the level 3 spell Animate Dead, should it be needed. However, sieging him is not on cursed ground, so it's actually safer for me to siege, which is unusual. Unfortunately for me, I never got earth magic as a secondary skill, so the 4 power I have is just barely enough to animate a ghost dragon, so I don't have much room for error here. Mott's army has 2 main threats, the 39 wights and the 66 skeletons. However, the most pressing issue is to take out the liches, as the AI typically does not come out of the castle gates unless their shooters are dead. I also can't just magic arrow them down, as I want enough mana to cast Animate Dead should it be necessary. So, on turn 1, I use my 1 available magic arrow cast on the liches before waiting with both my stacks. Mott magic arrows my Dread Knights, which could be an issue, doing 30 damage each time. Incredibly enough, Mott just rushes out the gates, so I get a beautiful double shot with my ballista, taking out 32 skeletons. The Dread Knights then take out the remaining skellies, and the dragons hit the Walking Dead. Turn 2, I hit the whites with the Ghost Dragons and the Dread Knights. Mott then hits the Dread Knights with all his units, but with my superior might stats, they survive with 27 HP. The ballista then kills the vampires, and on turn 3, I take out the 2 remaining opposing units. Surprisingly easy, and I didn't even have to use the animate dead cast I thought I would need. A bit lucky with how the fight played out, but I think I played it reasonably well. With Mott taken out, I can head on to the final scenario. From Day to Night, the last scenario of this campaign. It's on an XL map with an underground area as well, where I start with 3 necropolis towns and Red starts with 5 castle towns. We start out without mobility spells like Town Portal or Dimension Door, so this is all leading up to an epic final battle, right? Massive armies, hordes of skeletons and powerful undead creatures, right? Well, the scenario bonus choices include 3 ghost dragons, and these 3 ghost dragons lets me tempo this scenario to hell and back, so of course that's what I'm picking. I reset a few times looking for a logistics specialist. I end up with Gunnar and trade the 3 ghost dragons over to him and go directly for one of the 3 garrisons separating my starting area from Red's massive area. Quick combat makes quick work of this, and already on day 1, Gunnar has expert logistics. I am speed. The 3 necro starting heroes I have, I just send out to gather resources. The strategy here is not to build any necro units, but to build up to a Portal of Glory in the first castle town I conquer. Not every castle town can build a Portal of Glory here, so the pathing I take is very deliberate. On day 4, I find the first castle town, defended by Orin. Here we can see some of the strength of the ghost dragons, especially when they are split up into stacks of 1, the aging effect. Aging reduces the affected stack's HP in half, which is incredibly strong, especially against relatively high HP unit like the pikemen. Getting this town on day 4 is actually quite advantageous insofar that Red usually builds the correct buildings to support a week 1 Portal of Glory. Red already built a Mage Guild level 1, Blacksmith and Barracks, all necessary for Angels. All that remains is the Monastery, and we are good to go. Gunnar, however, won't be sitting around waiting for the Angels, which is why I recruit Zydar. I do not want a hero with necromancy, as the skeletons raised just slow me down, and map movement points are, as mentioned in the first video, based on the slowest units, so I only want fast units on my main heroes. And skeletons are also just made out of paper, well, technically bones, and perish to anything looking remotely in their direction. So Zydar flags some mines and collects resources, while Gunnar moves towards the next town on the list, the southeast town, usually guarded by Tyris. We can really see the power of logistics specialty here. Gunnar can move so far, especially on roads. It's just incredible. The alternative strategy I could use here is building up mage guilds to level 4, looking for Town Portal to be mobile on the map. But as this map is so road heavy, I can move super far even without Town Portal. Tyris' Barebones army is chanceless against Gunnar, and 2 of the main towns are already conquered. Nothing of value will be built here, as I don't plan on going back, unless Red uses the underground to return to take this town back. On day 6, I build a Portal of Glory in the first castle town. Fortunately, I'm able to build a castle as well on day 7, which will net me a beautiful 3 angels available in week 2. Pretty good considering I didn't even get the first castle town until halfway into the week. Week 2, day 1, I recruit all the angels, build the stables, and Zydar heads out towards his goal, the eastern red town. Not quite as mobile as Gunnar, but with the stables boost, Zydar can move a fair distance himself. Gunnar, meanwhile, uses his extreme mobility to head towards the 2 western towns. Hitting all the towns this early means Red hasn't had any real time to build up fortifications or creature dwellings, which is very good. Otherwise, this strategy would be pretty risky. Week 2, day 2, quick combat loses a dragon to the siege of Castletown number 3, so I have to do this manually. For an upgraded tier 7 unit, the ghost dragons are incredibly squishy. 200 HP and 17 defense are actually so bad. I tried to split the focus of the AI's attacks between all my stacks, but the defending units can just open the castle gate to move around, which I totally forgot. So after round 2 of attacks, one of my dragons is left at 10 HP, meaning I have to move it out of the way. I focus the griffins for as long as possible to take advantage of the curse I cast on round 1. After the curse runs out on the griffins, I cast it again on the swordsmen to lower their damage as well. A couple of very late aging effects later and the last defending units are down. A surprisingly difficult fight, especially considering there are no arrow towers or a hero defending. Xydar then finds an unguarded fortless castle town before he heads westwards as well. Gunnar takes the final red town, which is also unguarded, but red still has heroes on the map somewhere. Usually they appear around the western towns when in this position, so I place Gunnar in the middle of both of these towns and send Xydar down to the southeast to deter any heroes from approaching this town. Unfortunately, I guessed wrong in this case, and Theodorus appears close to the eastern town, which I, of course, don't have any heroes close to. Cuthbert then appears in the west, and I'm pulled in different directions. Typical. It's week 3 day 1, so I recruit Olemma from the first castle town to recruit the 2 available angels in order to trade them to Gunnar. Cuthbert's army looked big enough to threaten my ghost dragons, so a bit of a reinforcement is necessary. Xydar still heads for the eastern town, while Gunnar hunts Cuthbert down. With the angel reinforcement, Cuthbert is swatted away quite easily. Auto-combat can do this quite convincingly. This scenario is probably one of my favorites so far, as I love trying to play fast and with high tempo. Being able to leave my starting zone on day 1 with a sizable army is very satisfying, although I think starting with 3 ghost dragons is way too good of a bonus. But this is why I love this game. It can be so imbalanced, and in single player games like this, I do love that imbalance. Finally, Xydar catches up to Theodorus on week 3 day 6 and shows him who's boss in a quick fight. Gunnar, aka Sonic the Hedgehog, once again shows his extreme mobility by reaching the now final red town before Xydar would, even with Xydar having a massive head start. An absolutely dominating last siege fight seals the deal, and the scenario and campaign is finished. Just one more campaign left in the main Restoration of Arathia story. Long live the king, and long live my units. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment or subscribe. It's all appreciated more than you know. I really appreciate all the support I've gotten so far, especially all the nice comments. It really makes my day, and I hope you have a great day as well. Hej då!